who, according to me, I see a lot of differences more than similarities. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For those who are new, my name is Queen Duster, and today I'm back again with another interesting video. So someone reached out to me and told me of this video that they've seen about the comparison between Addis and Nairobi, in specific Addis, Ethiopia, and Nairobi, Kenya, with a perspective of a foreigner in both countries, evaluating different aspects and what was actually the ultimate end country. So they challenged me to do this video as a Kenyan who was born in Kenya, lived in Nairobi, and decided to move to Ethiopia and stayed in Addis Ababa, to move, not necessarily to visit, and then decided to come back to Kenya as we evaluate and see if I have a different opinion or if I agree with her. And then if someone uses all these concepts to understand different lives and make decisions on where is a better place to move or is a better country to settle in, then we can decide. I have to say, both of these countries are amazing. For sure, you have to visit Kenya and you have to visit Ethiopia. This is constant, okay? And I also recommend, forget even about Kenya and Ethiopia, I recommend to anyone that is looking to move into a country that if it's possible, apart from just watching YouTube videos, you could also look into going into these specific countries to visit and see if it is the vibe or the country specifications, that if you're able to adjust to those things, the culture shocks and all these things, so that when you come out of the transition of moving, then it becomes easier, especially if you have the luxury of being able to do that. Because some people, they are just maybe given the transfer, but then now because we are comparing the two, that means this person has the chance to choose whether it's gonna be this country or the other. So I highly recommend anyone watching this video, please come visit Kenya or come visit Ethiopia, depending from where you're watching me from. So when it comes to housing and transportation, I have to say, based on my experience of house hunting in Ethiopia, I have to say there are not as many options as compared to Kenya. I can also put it this way. In Kenya, many people live individually. For example, I left my parents' house when I finished high school, and now from that time, people start living their own individual lives. And then there's a whole concept of moving out. But I don't find that very common in Ethiopia, and most people that move out is based on if the place they got their work is like very far from their home place. A lot in Nairobi is very different, so that because of this, there are many options for finding accommodation in Kenya, from the lowest kind of budget in your housing options all the way to your highest options, which I did not necessarily find it in Ethiopia. There is cheap accommodation, actually, let's say affordable accommodation, but most of it you find it away from like the city center and stuff like this. Then in terms of housing options and how good houses can look, I feel like in Ethiopia the structure is almost similar of houses, especially those ones with like a parking underground and majorly that. But in Kenya you find houses are completely different. Like you find houses with swimming pool, you found houses with the big compound, you found houses that are apartments, you find it can be townhouse. There's like all these different kind of options. Okay, in relation to the housing, the other part that I like about the Kenya part is if foreigners are looking into, because it's a move, if you're looking into buying, you're able to buy an apartment, you're able to buy a house, stuff like this. But in Ethiopia, that is limited. So in terms of housing, I for sure would give it to Kenya, especially because it gives you different options. Yeah, in terms of transportation, that's so let's put it this way. In terms of transportation, then we can balance housing and transportation. Transportation is way cheaper if you're using Uber in Ethiopia, but if like what they call ferries, but if you're like a taxi, if you're using that, it's way cheaper compared to Kenya. But if you're buying a car, the price is extremely expensive. Put it this way, if you ever think of anything imported in Ethiopia, just know the price is higher compared to Kenya, especially for things like electronics, cars, all these things that are imported. And in that way, I think Kenya also wins because it gives you different options of different cars. Peace and stability. This one is a tricky one. It was as obvious as Kenya wins because Ethiopia was going through a continuous conflict, the Tigray conflict and all these things. Then whatever came up, no VPN, no internet. Okay, use VPN, no internet. It was as easy as that. Huh? Like if I was shooting this video 2 months ago, or even like 3 months ago, it was as easy as saying Kenya wins. But it is not as automatic now. When I came back to Kenya, there's this thing that has been happening every Wednesday and Friday, there have been protests between the government, like the current president, against the opposition leaders, and it is really frustrating. To make it worse, as I'm shooting this video, it happens now Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, which is crazy. That means the whole week everything has been occupied on the form of demonstrations and people being outside and people not going to work and your business being affected, stuff like this, things being destroyed. To make it even worse, the tax going up because of the destruction of things and they need to be paid. When I think about all this logistics, I'm like, oh my god. But I was in Ethiopia when the conflict was going on, when all headlines were saying evacuate is a word? I don't know what evacuate means actually, do I? Okay, when everyone was saying leave Ethiopia because it has been announced as the state of emergency, all these factors, and I have to say, I did not expect, apart from the searches that I would experience from police, like there were more searches, which I would say like right now in Kenya, there's still many police around the area, but I never witnessed tear gas. I never witnessed or heard bombs and stuff like this. Not like bombs, but like shootings. Here in my house, like yesterday, I could hear all these things outside. I could hear people shouting and stuff like this. I never experienced the real experience of the conflict in Ethiopia while I was there. No, I don't necessarily want to say in terms of peace and stability that I'm gonna choose either of these two countries. My biggest advocate is that there's peace and stability, and let's stop all these factors. And even the worst part, maybe I should talk more about this in relation to what's going on between African countries. It actually just does more worse to countries than it does good. And now I digress. Anyway, let's come back. So which one in terms of peace and stability? Unfortunately for me as a Kenyan, I'm gonna have to pick Kenya. That Kenya is more peaceful and stable, but with a fear. I could give this like a half point. It doesn't even qualify for a 1 because I'm living life right now with such a fear of, I don't know how things can turn around. Things can turn around so fast. It reminds me of 2007 when we had the political difference and the war and all these things. I'm not saying that's where we are headed, but like in a week, 3 days of absentia because of protests that are not peaceful protests that they are expected to be. Can't give peace and stability a 1. It has to be like a half. Giving it the stability a half is because the Ethiopia one progressed for way longer. So as we talk right now, let's just say Kenya one has not prolonged for long and it has not become a conflict or a war. There's still some form of peace apart from the days that there is like the demonstration. Yeah. And just my fear part is the reason why we take away the half. Anyway, let's talk about food. This one goes without thinking. I absolutely I'm willing to fight with every Kenyan that tells me Kenya food is better than Ethiopian food. Well, hold up. I know I've met Kenyans that have visited Ethiopia and they're like, why are you overhyping this food? But then this is my opinion and this is my choice. I love the food. It has different flavors. They have different options. They have different way of making it. It's just delicious according to me. It is flavorful to the mouth. Let's not even talk just about injera. I feel in Kenya we are more on the influenced part on what is our foods as well. We have tasty good food. I'm not saying we don't have that, but for me, in terms of being able to explore some good different kind of food. And the thing I also love about Ethiopian food, it is Ethiopian food. There's no way we say Kenyan food. Is it ugali? You come at me. Is it ugali or is it chapati? And then chapati, are we going to be talking about, is it Indian? If it is ugali, are you sure it is not Ugandan food and not Tanzanian food, but Kenyan? But for Ethiopian food, it is Ethiopian food. So Ethiopia wins this one. It's no much negotiation. For me, these are 2 factors, okay? Entertainment for me means things I can do, activities, games, concerts and stuff like this. Well, maybe not concerts because concert falls more on the nightlife kind, but I would say for entertainment, for sure. I'm sorry Ethiopia, but this one Kenya wins because there's so many things to do within just even Nairobi. Like there's a national park, there is all these wildlife things. Well, you will say there is Entoto, there is Unity Park, there's all those parks in Addis as well. But let's talk also about activities. There's go-karting. Well, there's also go-karting, there's bowling, but like not just one. There is zip lining, there's activities that are in Addis Ababa, are in Nairobi, but also Nairobi has like more to offer. Like there's the wheel, what's it called, the Eye of Africa. There's just so many other things to do, like even cinema places. There's so many in, this is not even a question when it comes to entertainment. When it comes to nightlife, I feel like I enjoy the diversity of nightlife in Ethiopia, especially when it incorporates the cultural part of it. This is why I love the Ethiopian side, and also because it mostly plays their country kind of situations. So when it comes to these two, I'm gonna give a point to entertainment being Kenya and a point to nightlife for me being Ethiopia, because the nightlife in Kenya is more about lots of, for me, according to me, but then I'm also thinking there are so many other amazing places. It reminds me of the comedy show. This is so hard to decide on the nightlife. I don't want to be biased, so let's give it to Kenya. Good Lord, I feel like in this whole video I'm finally gonna end up being so biased, because I have like a 50-50 relationship with these things. For example, the weather, I love Ethiopia weather, how predictable Ethiopia weather is, unlike Kenya weather. Kenya weather is not as predictable. But the fact that Ethiopia weather is predictable, in this case I mean Addis Ababa, the fact that Addis Ababa weather is predictable, I don't like the 3 months that rain. But then that doesn't mean that it doesn't rain in Kenya, right? And even worse, I will not know on the days it rains. So I think this one I'm gonna give it to Ethiopia or Addis Ababa, because if you are able to predict and to see how the weather is gonna be, then you can plan out your days on how in those days you're either gonna go to the south of Ethiopia or you're gonna go visit your family around that time when the weather is not according to your liking. But also, let's also put this out, the weathers in both of these countries is amazing compared to what other people experience. For example, like in Europe or even in southern of Africa, we don't experience as much winter as they do, you know, or whatever other places. So I have to say for this one, let's give it to Ethiopia for being more predictable. And they also have very amazing landscapes. I enjoyed the road trips that I did. I enjoyed seeing different, like in Kenya is green and stuff, but then Ethiopia is like, this side is green, the other side is dry, the other side is mountainous, the other side is flat. So it has all this different kind of way. And so therefore, on environment and weather, I give it to Addis Ababa. Energy and spirituality. I think this is one of the reasons that made me stay in Ethiopia. The energy that people give is a welcoming energy, and you can never fail to remember about the people of Ethiopia, just because of how they treat you and how they welcome you and how kind they are. Yeah, that's the vibe I got from Ethiopia. Funny thing, I can't talk this. Nairobi, as I told you in another video, it gives the energy of protect yourself before embracing another person. This is the vibe I feel and the energy I feel around Nairobi. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section down below. And now when it comes to spirituality, is this even a question? Like, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. It goes to Ethiopia, because in Ethiopia, every day is a church day. Every day is a let's thank God. Or every day is have even our worries and our complaints and even not being colonized, they account it all this to God. So it's spirituality for sure. Energy and spirituality goes to Ethiopia. Because of the number of foreigners that I'm able to see between Kenya and Ethiopia, I feel like there are way more foreigners in Nairobi compared to the number of foreigners in Addis Ababa. There are opportunities in both countries, I would say, but I feel like in Kenya, it's way easier to be able to penetrate through. This is why in Kenya, a foreigner can open a business and there are no restrictions when it comes to like dollars, money exchange and all these factors, even for locals and individuals, because I'm thinking in Ethiopia, even for them as locals, they have to go through some hassles when it comes to business, especially that is foreign exchange related. Just thinking, you can correct me if I'm wrong, no problem, but I'm thinking business opportunities in Kenya is way more open is way more open, because also in Ethiopia there is the requirement for a foreigner to be able to join into the business world is way more complicated, and there's opportunities. So if you're coming to be, well, we can give the account that the many headquarters are in Ethiopia, but that means those people that are working there, they can as well as get their exchange of jobs to a different country, maybe Kenya in that case. So for sure, without doubt, I give business opportunity to Kenya. And come, let's think about it. This is actually one of my biggest factor that I had to come back to Kenya, because this is the country that allows me to invest. This is the country that allows me to grow my network in a way that will benefit me in my own country, if that makes sense. Like, for example, in the real estate world, if I grow my network in terms of where to purchase this and that, and like in Ethiopia, I'm not able to be able to purchase like properties and stuff like this. If there is actually a point that led me to coming back to Kenya, is the business opportunities that I am limited, especially like as a foreigner. And I feel like, well, it's good for Ethiopia itself to be able to build itself up to the further it has come. It's like everything that has a pro also has a con, you know, that kind of concept. Yeah, so for sure it goes to Kenya. And with all this, I see Kenya had the win in terms of the best country to move in. And to be honest, even before we talk about some of the other differences, which is language barrier if you're moving to Ethiopia, because in Kenya we speak a lot of English, so it makes life easier if you're moving to either Addis Ababa or to Nairobi. But I also have to say the number of people that are speaking English in Addis Ababa is also increasing, so that is not like a permanent kind of problem. But the similarities, I would say, is Kenya and Ethiopia, they both have diverse community of people. Like, for example, in Kenya we have like more than, I think, 47 tribes and cultures and different way of people doing life, as well as Ethiopia. But I would say, no, Ethiopia, they have like way more than 47, I think. And theirs is more profound. Like, for example, from the north compared to the people in Omo Valley is like very different. But then it's still the same thing. Like, if you compare people from the western to the people in Turkana, you find different people. But also this is similar for many African countries, where you find there are very diverse people that live in the country. And of course, very important thing that we can talk about is the altitude in Ethiopia is higher and the altitude in Kenya is a little bit low. You know, the funny thing is, some Kenyans that came to Ethiopia experiencing the altitude difference and having challenges in the breath and the breathing and stuff like this. This is one factor that has made me realize I am very healthy. I can climb Mount Kilimanjaro confidently because I did not experience any of this in relation to the altitude and the height. Yeah, I'm just saying which one is easier. I would say moving to Kenya for sure is easier than moving to Ethiopia. Let me know what are your opinions in the comment section down below, and I hope I tried my best not to be biased. I tried my best to give my honest opinion. I tried my best to give my honest thoughts, and also both of these countries are amazing, and I did not with any intention put any of these countries down. I love both of the countries, and for sure I'm Kenyan forever. Well, I'm born Kenyan, but Ethiopia will forever remain to be my second home. So I hope you enjoyed this video. All love to both countries. Otherwise, always remember to share for the Twitch Ignites as well. Until next time.